heist that took place in college basketball. That's right, I said it, an absolute heist. We'll talk about that at the top of the hour. Plus, Blake Griffin's a victim. Did you hear the news, Mexico? Did you hear the news? Blake Griffin is a victim. Blake Griffin is being unfairly criticized. I mean, my Lord, what does this world come to? How can we dare say anything negative about Blake Griffin of the Brooklyn Nets? We'll get into that as well. And porn star Jimmy, a.k.a. Jimmy G, a.k.a. Jimmy Garoppolo. Could he be in the trade market? Should he be in the trade market? I don't know. We're about to find out. All that and more. First Takes in the house. Your boy is here. Let's get it. Where's my DJ?
Put that camera on me.
Can't believe what I just heard.
Are you good at or bad at what you're doing? You're terrible. You're the worst.
Something is wrong with you.
This is the definition of player hating.
The best show on television.
Stop right there. He's the best.
Definitely co-sign that sentiment.
Thanks for tuning in to First Take.
Start the damn show.
You know what I was just thinking about before the show started? It's only fitting that I would go to the university associated with greatness. And you know, Stephen A., I know you're the richest person at ESPN now. I think I read that in some newspaper.
I think
but
it's
I got
false.
a couple
That
dollars.
is patently false.
Do you want me to take you? Do you want me to take you to Gino's? I mean, do you want to get a little pasta after the show? Because he makes homemade sauce too.
To show you, Molly, how real and authentic I am, let me say that Molly once took me shopping, okay, to upgrade some style in my life. She took me shopping. You understand? So I mean, I'm not hating on it, but that doesn't. You don't get to gloss over what happened last night. That was a damn heist that took place with UConn versus Baylor.
All right. Let me give the details in case anybody
go
was
ahead and
asleep.
give those
Hi,
details.
Max. So good to see you this morning, Max.
Yeah.
And then we'll get to
Don't
it. So the
hide behind
Huskies beat Baylor as they should, 69-67 to advance to a 13th consecutive Final Four. UConn led 68-67 with 5 seconds left when Baylor's DeJounte Carrington appeared to be fouled by two Huskies, but nothing was called. LeBron James getting in on it, tweeting this. Come on, man, that was a foul. Hashtag NCAA women, Baylor versus UConn. Then Gino's daughter, Alyssa Oriema, getting in on the action. That should have been a foul, but I'd like to point out that account is now deleted. Alyssa, you never go against the family. You should know this. Let's hear from the coaches, Kim Mulkey and Gino, right now.
Everybody from LeBron James actually to your daughter tweeted that was a foul at the end.
Really? Maybe. I don't think LeBron's ever won a game on a bad call by the other team, by the other officials. Do you think? I probably doubt it. I probably doubt that in his career he's ever won a game and decided to give it back because he looked at it and went, that was a foul. So it is what it is.
What did you see?
I was surprised they didn't call a foul.
Then write it like that. You don't need a quote from me. I've got still shots and video from two angles. One kid hits her in the face and one kid hits her on the elbow.
Got some still shots and video too. Gentlemen, you just let me know when you want a tour of Gamble and stores so you can see what a dynasty feels like. Stephen A., do you think Baylor got robbed?
Hell yeah, they got robbed. I mean, I think it's appropriate to say that. Now, listen. I'm really having fun with this because it's to me, it's a rarity when you get to question anything about UConn women's basketball. Their 13th straight Final Four. They got 11, 12, they're going for a 12th national title. They're phenomenal. In all seriousness, we understand Gino Oriema is absolutely right. I couldn't think of a greater comeback than he did at LeBron James with what he just said, because that's absolutely true, and it's no big deal. But LeBron James was right. Fran Fraschilla was right. I'm right. Anybody could see. People who can't see could see that was a damn foul, okay? Carrington got fouled. She got mugged. She got mugged on the way up. She got mugged once she elevated. You got elbowed in the face. It was a glaring, flagrant foul. Not literally a flagrant foul, but it was a foul without question. You've got to call that It's a berth to the Final Four of the line. It was so clear. It was so evident. There's no way around it. It was a heist, as far as I'm concerned, because UConn should not have been able to win this game like that. At the very least, overtime.
Max, let me get in
It shouldn't
here.
have been like that. It's a heist, Molly. That one's a heist.
Okay, let me get
I'm
in here.
sorry.
First of all, you're the last person I want to hear this from because you've been crying on national TV rants about the NBA. Oh, don't let the refs get involved. Have the refs let them play. And then this one call, excuse me, Stephen A., did
Do I get to
UConn go on a
respond?
19-0 run
Do I
in
get
the
to respond?
second half? Why did
Do I-
Baylor do something about a 19-0 run? But
Do
it
I get
came
to
down
respond?
to this
Do you just
one
want to talk, or do
play.
I get to respond to your diatribe? Because
Well,
I want to respond to you,
I just
Molly.
wanted to make
You,
2
Molly.
points. Mine took about 2 seconds.
Molly,
Go
Molly,
ahead.
we
Sure,
care about
respond.
we care about the wonderful women in college basketball. They do a phenomenal job. Baylor's got a damn good program. I recall D.D. Richards going down with that hamstring injury. Now, injuries are part of the game. But that's when the 19-0 run took place. After she went down, let's be clear about that. That's number one. Number two, to be accurate, when I've gotten on the officiating in the NBA, what I was alluding to is technical fouls and throwing people out of the game because they react to a call that they question, stuff like that. We pay to see these folks play. We want to watch them on TV. We want to walk through the turnstiles, and you got officials throwing guys out of the game. Devin Booker, a rising superstar in the National Basketball Association, is on national television going up against the Lakers. Max, you and I were talking about this. You're going up against the Lakers, and they threw him out of the damn game because he questioned a call. He questioned it quietly. He didn't engage in histrionics, and you just going to throw him out of the game with all of us watching, looking forward to seeing this brother and the rising Phoenix Suns play. So when I have complained about the officiating on any level, particularly and specifically as it pertains to the National Basketball Association, it's for guys getting assessed flagrant fouls or getting ejected from games for nothing. It wasn't because of calls like that we saw last night.
You two
Max,
are getting
get in
very
here.
emotional, both of you. Stephen A., Molly, you're both getting very emotional about this.
Yeah.
It seems to me that
He's annoying.
injuries are
So,
part of
yeah.
the game. Injuries
I
are
love
part
it.
of the game. And yes, I can attest
too.
to it. They're both annoying. That is true. Injuries are
We
part of the
are.
game, and
We
so are bad calls part of the game. But Molly, that was
Thank you,
bad
Max.
call,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that was a bad call. They got that call wrong.
Hold
That
on.
was
Pause, Max. Molly, answer Max's question.
Max.
Answer Max's question.
Max, what if that? Excuse me. Who's your basketball team now? Oh yeah, it's the Lakers. What if that was the Lakers to win a chip?
Well,
what would you say?
I would come out here
was
and
that
admit
a bad call?
that was a bad call. Did the other team
You know
get
what
robbed?
I said is UConn Huskies.
Well, that's fine. You could.
Max, she still hasn't answered your question.
Yeah,
She
that's
still,
right.
Molly
That's
still
right.
hasn't answered
No,
the question.
she answered.
Molly still hasn't answered the question.
Her silence has answered the
I'm ready
question.
for the Final Four. I told you they shouldn't allow the 19-0 run. That was their fault. What do you want
point
from me?
is-
And I heard that Kim Mulkey's mad about the COVID testing. She doesn't need to worry because she's not going to the
Well, that's
Final
ridiculous.
Four.
She's
UConn is.
ridiculous
Carry
on
on,
that
Max.
The point
That's
is
ridiculous on her
The
part.
point is bad calls are a part of the
Should be
game.
tested.
I remember when Charles Smith
Yeah.
went back
So
when I
are
used to be a
injuries.
Knicks fan, before Jim Dolan took it over from Chuck Dolan and ruined the team for the last couple decades. Charles Smith goes up in the playoffs against
Numerous
the
times.
Bulls.
Against Harvard, Jordan.
Scottie Pippen had one hand over here. It was in the tabloids the next day. Horace Grant had his other hand over here, and they didn't call it. They kind of yanked his arm down. Now,
He had
it's
five
part of the
chances.
game.
He had 5 chances
Right,
at
like
that
it's
match.
part of the game. You could say, I don't care, we're moving on. But you have to admit that they were robbed. That's a robbery. When a bad call affects a play like that, and they get it the opposite of how they should get it, and it's blatant, you can say that was a robbery. It's okay, Molly. It happens. Robberies happen. Coach
I
just said
can't.
it after
I mean,
the
you
game.
guys can.
But it happened.
Yeah, Molly should say that. There's so much for objectivity there, Molly. But I will say this. This freshman, this girl, Paige Beckers, oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
She is special.
Right?
Oh, my
Unreal.
Lord. She
Best player in the country.
She looked like she's got a chance to be the Steph Curry of women's basketball. That girl can stroke it. I mean, she's got a J. She's got a shot. Whoa. She looks special. I'll admit, oh my God.
I want to hear Molly admit that it was a robbery. It's
It was-
okay.
it
Molly,
was.
I
It
find
was.
it more enjoyable when my team is the beneficiaries of a robbery. I think it's hilarious. Can't you just
Listen,
admit that they got
Max,
robbed?
I know it's been very big of you to admit things on TV like the Cliff and Tom Brady and all of that, but I'm sorry. This morning I cannot do such things, fellas.
Okay, you don't have to do it.
Give her some
You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it.
Give her some time.
All I want
As
to tell the people is grab their belongings. Make sure that anytime you go near UConn, just grab your stuff. I mean, robbery takes place in stores now because that's what happened last night. That's what happened. Oh, that's
Stephen
robbery,
A.
Molly.
You can do it.
Please. That was a right. You got to call that.
Hold on. You grab that L like Baylor, because that's what they're doing today.
Wow.
I'll leave it on that note.
Wow.
You want to keep it rolling, fellas?
Wow. That's a good.
Feeling the hate for joining the Super Team Nets. Blake saying this in the response to the critics. It's kind of funny to me because for the last couple of years, all I heard is how bad I am. You sign with this team and everybody's like, that's not fair. Stephen A., some hypocrisy here. Is the Griffin-Aldridge criticism justified?
Well, first of all, it's justified. And secondly, and more importantly...
Can I ask you something? How could you ask Stephen A. that question? He's the guy doing the criticizing. Is it justified? Who's been louder about it than Stephen A.?
That would be true. You're
I know.
absolutely
I
accurate
didn't know
on
if I
that
should
point.
just put him on the spot like that on Front Street right out of the gate.
I got no
was going to let him do
problems
it
with it.
himself.
I said what I said. I meant what the hell I said. Ain't nobody scared of Blake Griffin. I respect the hell out of him. I really do. Not just as a basketball player, but as a person. But I said what I said. I meant what the hell I meant. All right? The fact of the matter is that he's got this wrong, though, in this sense. It wasn't me that said that. Remember, I was pointing out how Blake Griffin, and you remember when you were talking about, Max, how the dissipation and skills, and I was saying he's a place where he doesn't want to be.
Notice he's dunking now.
It's Detroit. He doesn't want to be there. He's not that interested in being there, et cetera, et cetera. You know what? You depart from L.A. to go to the Motor City. It's a difference. And you look at the Clippers franchise and what he had there compared to what he has in Detroit. It's a difference. That's what I pointed to. I certainly didn't point to some flagrant dissipation of skills. As a matter of fact, the only argument that we made, and I still stand by that, is who would you rather have, Blake Griffin or Carmelo Anthony, when we were talking about both of them. And I said I'd rather have Carmelo Anthony. And I didn't think that Blake Griffin was Carmelo Anthony. This is years ago. We had that discussion. That's the only negative thing I've ever said about Blake Griffin, and I don't consider it negative. It was just me praising Carmelo Anthony because, damn it, Carmelo Anthony deserved it. He deserves it now, and I'm very proud of my brother for doing what he's been doing.
But in between, he didn't deserve it so much.
Well, you could say he didn't deserve it, but he
does deserve it now. He deserved it then.
He had departed from the Knicks. And then remember, he was in Oklahoma City and then from Oklahoma City to Houston. But there were some issues in both respective places, which I highlighted. But for him to be out of the league was just ridiculous. And Carmelo Anthony has proved me right. I'm proud of that brother. Now let me get back to Blake Griffin. That's all I said. I've never said anything about Blake Griffin couldn't play. Matter of fact, I specifically pointed out he can play. Here's where Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge needs to understand where I'm coming from. KD might have left Oklahoma City to go to Golden State, Max and Molly. But KD was a superstar. And he arrived as a superstar. And even though they were a bomb squad, he still elevated them because he's that great. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. When you look at LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin, they were once the cornerstones of a franchise in Portland and L.A. respectively. When LaMarcus Aldridge went to San Antonio, that was a big-time free agent pickup for the San Antonio Spurs. And we were looking at them different because LaMarcus Aldridge had arrived, and obviously they had other pieces there with Manu and Kawhi and all of that other stuff, with Tim Duncan fading into the twilight. We understood that. What I'm saying is that you look at them now, it's as if they are literally hanging on for the sole express purpose of getting a championship while making a minimal contribution. That is not the same as you being some big-time talent and then going to a team as a big-time talent where you're playing a pivotal role. And so what I'm saying is for them to join a squad where you're talking about Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge possibly not even being a fourth option. A fourth option. I'm like, damn, that's all I'm saying. And I don't apologize for that because I'm about this competition, man. It means everything to me in this sense. I want to see who you go against. How many times do I sit here with you, Max, across from you and talking to Molly? How many times do I pay attention to two things? Resume, and I talk about who you win against.
Quality of opposition.
The quality of opposition. And when the scales are tipped so dramatically that there's barely friendly competition. I'm not saying that's reality, the really case. I'm saying that's the intent. That's where I get along. That's all I'm saying.
Blake is right about this, and you're wrong. Okay. And I will tell you why.
Please do.
First of all, the media is not a monolith. We all have different things to say.
Sure.
But overwhelmingly, what Blake has been hearing recently, not from you, is you stink. You can't play anymore.
Yeah, he heard that from me.
No, he didn't hear that part from you, but he heard that. And now he's hearing overwhelmingly from the media, it's not fair. They got Blake. So he has a right to feel that way. It's not directed at you or me or just generally like, hold up, time out. Most of what is said is I can't play, and now most of what is said is it's not fair. The Nets got me. How's that work? Okay, that's number one. Number two, you're essentially saying he's ring chasing, and that when he was the cornerstone of a franchise, he couldn't get it done. And the same goes for LaMarcus Aldridge. And you're right about that. You're right. They weren't good enough to be the best player on a championship team. Maybe not even the second best player on a championship team. But I'm not going to sit here and castigate players who've come to a conclusion, especially at this point in their career, that's not easy. I can't be the man on a championship team. Know why, Stephen A? Not good enough. They're not quite good enough. It's not that they weren't fantastic players. They were. But there are levels to this. When you have a league with LeBron and KD and those guys, that's a level above the highest level Blake or LaMarcus Aldridge have ever played on. Mm-hmm. That's not a slight to them. It's praising the level that LeBron and KD have attained. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to sit here and cast aspersions and kind of take credit away from guys, especially when they're older, who acknowledge that, okay, you know what I can be? I can be the fourth option on a championship team, especially when the addition of Blake and LaMarcus Aldridge doesn't make it unfair to the Nets. They don't really move the needle. What moves the needle for the Nets was KD, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. That's why the Nets are going to destroy everybody.
Okay. Here's my point. First of all, I'm allowed to not like something without it actually being a criticism. It just doesn't happen to be my preference. I'm not knocking Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge. I get it. But my point is that if this were a superstar that we saw descend before our very eyes, we would be like, why not just retire? As opposed to be seen as somebody who's the fourth, fifth, sixth wheel on a team riding the coattails of other people because they were so great at one moment in time and expectations were so high for them at one moment in time that to not reach that but to still stick around, to essentially be in a uniform, sitting on the bench damn near as much as I am, okay, watching the other guys perform, but getting a ring. I'm not saying that's literally the case with LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin. Of course not. I'm not trying to disrespect them. I respect where they're coming from. I'm just saying that as a basketball purist who loves the game and loves the competitive fervor, is it all right for me to sit up there and say, I don't like it without it being a criticism?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. That I agree with, and let me explain this real quick, Molly. I need about a minute.
Sure.
I was on KD, as were you, for going to the Warriors because people like us in the media put so much stress on winning championships, right? Barkley doesn't have a chip. Shaq gives him stuff about it on the air, right? Like, that's how it goes. So these players want chips. I gave KD criticism because he reverse engineered it. He went to a team that couldn't not win a chip without him because they almost did it. They had won without him. They're one of the best teams ever made, right? And now KD joined. So what does that really prove, KD? Well, I won MVP of the final. Stop it. You couldn't not do that. You're a great player. You joined an impossible team to beat with you on it. This is a version of that, basically, to me, is what you're saying, Stephen, and I agree with that. I think guys like Blake and LaMarcus Aldridge are there going, look, they have the names of great players because they were at their best. And now they're going to add a ring. But they're not, adding a ring's not going to say anything about them as players. That's the point. A ring is supposed to say something about you as a player. These rings won't do that for Blake and Aldridge, other than the fact that they gave up money to go get it. That it was important to them, that they wanted to go buy it. That's how important it was to them. Yeah. That I agree with.
All right. We're going to leave it there, fellas. Plenty more to come here on First Take. Are the 49ers making a mistake keeping Jimmy G and drafting a quarterback? Super Bowl champion Booger McFarland wants in on that debate in just a bit. Plus, the Clippers beat the Bucks without PG-13 last night. So why does Stephen A. think Giannis has a better chance to reach the finals than Kawhi? It's First Take. Let's get it. to number 3 in the upcoming draft in April.
It's going to be hard to find a quarterback that gives us a better chance to win than Jimmy right now, especially even a rookie in the draft. So that's what you look into. Now, if someone wanted something for that and it can make your team better in a lot of other ways, you listen to that, but it also depends on how good you feel about that rookie. And we're not there yet right now. And odds are we probably won't be. That's why we're happy that we don't have to be that way. We got a guy in here who we know we can win with, a guy that our players love, that we love. And we're excited to have him this year, and we're excited to have a hell of a quarterback right behind him, learning from when the time's his.
On that note, we welcome in Super Bowl champ Booger McFarland. Booger, great to see you, sir. I will get to you in just a moment. But, Max, I'm going to start with you. Do you think the Niners should trade or keep Stephen A's favorite quarterback, Jimmy G?
They should absolutely keep him. I totally agree with Coach. And I also agree with Steve Young, who said this is going to define it. Already he has a substantial resume, but it's going to define Shanahan's career. Like this quarterback pick, he's going to choose his guy, bring him in as a rookie, and let's see what happens. He's bringing him into a team, if it is Mac Jones, that's ready to win now. But he ain't going to do it with a rookie quarterback. Why not keep a guy like, whatever you want to say that's bad about Jimmy G, he's more than just a competent quarterback. He has played now, he's injury prone, there's no two ways about it. Another reason you draft a guy, but when he's on the field, his team almost always wins. And when he's not on the field, the backup quarterback almost always loses. Which means it's not just, it's easy to replace him. If it was, they wouldn't almost always lose when he doesn't play and almost always win when he plays. He's been, whether or not you want to say he's taken a team to a Super Bowl, he was on a Super Bowl team. And if not for one pass to Emmanuel Sanders that he missed, which I would say he's going to hit that half the time, right? They win the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They'd win the Super Bowl. Who says they can't run it back? They bring back a team that's ready to win with Jimmy G if he could stay healthy, if he does. Maybe they're in that same position again, only this time he hits it. It's as likely as he hits it as he misses it. And then they win the Super Bowl. Like I'm saying, they could win a Super Bowl this year with Jimmy G as quarterback. Why would you trade that up and pass that up? And then you have a mentor. You have a guy whoever you bring in, let's say it's Mac Jones, he can hold the clipboard. He doesn't have to worry about the pressure of starting right now on a team that's ready. And the comparison most people have made, not that Mac Jones is ever going to be Patrick Mahomes. I mean, almost nobody will ever be Patrick Mahomes. But it's the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes thing. You have a good team with a solid quarterback that has chances this year, and you've drafted for the future. Why wouldn't you do that? What are you hoping to add a second-round pick? Like, that's really what you want to do and get rid of a chance to win this year? It doesn't make any sense. Keep Jimmy G right there.
I'm not so sure. I mean, I don't mind them keeping Jimmy G. Please don't get me wrong, but if you can entertain a deal with the New England Patriots, I mean, then to me, that's something that you should entertain. Because what Bill Belichick is trying to do back there, if you're talking about getting a quarterback, Max, how about let me throw this out at you and Booger, okay? And I'm just speculating here because obviously we've heard Diana Rossini and others allude to what they're hearing in terms of the Patriots being interested in getting Jimmy G back. He was 2-0 as a starter for them. He's 24-8 as a starter overall, 22-8 as a starter with the 49ers, complete 67% of his passes in his career, but he's injury prone. You understand? It seems like you blow in his direction. He might get injured. That's the problem. And by the way, Molly, as a correction, he's not my favorite quarterback. He has my favorite nickname. I mean, there's no better nickname than Porn Star Jimmy. I gave it to him. That's the best nickname right there, Porn Star Jimmy. It's definitely appropriate. He deserves it. And by the way, it is not an insult. It is just a matter of fact. The man is Porn Star Jimmy.
He showed up very publicly.
You show up in public. You show up in public in L.A. before you ever throw a pass for the San Francisco 49ers with a porn star. You Porn Star Jimmy. That's what you wanted to be perceived as. You got the nickname. Enjoy it. Here's the deal. 22-8 as a starter and all of this stuff. I venture to say Bill Belichick gave the San Francisco 49ers a gift. They gave him Jimmy Garoppolo for a second-round pick. Hell, how about returning the favor? Do something for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. How about that? And how about this one, Max? How about this one, Booger? Not only do you get Jimmy G back, but you give them Cam Newton. I'd like Cam Newton in San Francisco. I like him with actual targets to throw the football to. Kittle, okay, Debo Samuels, Mostert being able to run the football. We've lamented, his Cam still has it. I've lamented his accuracy or lack thereof, but nevertheless, I'm saying you put him with weapons, the athletic stud that he is. If you still believe in Cam, there is no question. on the offensive side of the ball that the San Francisco 49ers, with the play calling of Kyle Shanahan, is a better option for Cam Newton than Josh McDaniel and Bill Belichick in New England with the being bereft of weapons the way that they are, I'd say, hey, wait a minute here. Let Jimmy G go back to Bill Belichick, which is where he belongs. Tom Brady's supposed successor. Let him be a Foxborough, even though you're going to get injured in San Francisco. Chances are you're going to get injured in Foxborough, too, because cold weather does affect us. The point is, if you go there because of his familiarity with them, their system, the coach, and everything else, let him go back to New England, send Cam Newton to San Francisco, and get equitable compensation, okay, in return. Let Jimmy G go back to the Patriots. Let Cam Newton go to San Francisco. And we might be singing a different tune about both of them.
You know, typically, Stephen A., I would normally sit there and just echo everything you said because, you know, after all, you are the love doctor. But think about this, Stephen A. I want you to think about this, okay?
Oh, wow.
Love doctor commenting on porn star Jimmy.
Love doctor, porn star Jimmy. And let's not forget Brick. Let's not forget.
Help me now.
Hey, Booker, let's not forget Brick on General Hospital. By the way, he returns last week in April. Brick returns to General
Brick's
Hospital.
Government name? That's what I want to know.
Don't worry about his government name. He's a surveillance expert for the mob on General Hospital, and he returns the last week in April. Go ahead, Booker.
And you know what? Typically, the love doctor would say, you know what? If you're in a marriage and you're in a relationship and things have gone south and you know we are heading for divorce, go ahead and do it now. Cut the cord and move on. That way we can heal our wounds. That sounds like something the love doctor would say to make sure everybody comes out and feels the right way. But you know what, Stephen A., this ain't love, my friend. Okay, this is called big boy business in professional sports. And Kyle Shanahan's job is not to make sure both sides are okay. His job is to make sure he can win the most games as the 49ers head coach because, as Max said, his legacy is on the line. Okay, Kyle Shanahan, boy wonder, Mike Shanahan's son, arguably the greatest play caller in the National Football League. Guess what? What does he have to show for it? What does he have to show for it? Nothing right now. So therefore, a Super Bowl appearance? What the hell is that? Last time I checked, I got Super Bowl rings.
The next year, Garoppolo only played 6 games.
Hey, listen, don't cry over spilled milk. We play for rings. We don't play for certificates that say you participate in the Super Bowl. We play for rings. That's what we do. And Kyle Shanahan doesn't have anything to show for it. So if you're going to walk into the 49ers locker room this year and tell Nick Bosa and tell those guys, hey, we got a chance to win the Super Bowl this year, you're not doing it with a rookie quarterback. So Jimmy G gives them the best chance to win right now. Very similar to what the Kansas City Chiefs did with Mahomes and Alex Smith.
Booker, what about the Cam Newton idea? What about the Cam Newton idea? Because I think it makes a lot of sense. The only thing that I would say is it's a third system he's got to learn in as many years, basically. But it makes a lot of sense in terms of what he might be able to do there.
Listen, y'all believe in Cam Newton if you want to. 2015 has come and gone, and we haven't seen that Cam Newton since, okay? And I don't think we're ever going to see it. I'm not a believer in Cam Newton. I would rather have Jimmy Garoppolo than Cam Newton, even though we know Jimmy G is on his way out. You play Jimmy G this year. You give your team, when healthy, with a really good defense, some really good front four guys up front rushing the quarterback. We know Kyle Shanahan can scheme up the run game, and if Jimmy G can make and be consistent in the pocket, as Kyle said, and I quote, we can win with Jimmy G. And whatever rookie quarterback you draft, at whatever point he's ready, whether it's at the end of the season, whether it's next year, then you make the move. There is no way Kyle Shanahan can walk into that locker room and tell the other 52 guys on that team, hey, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, I don't care who he drafts, is going to give us the best chance to win. And you can't just throw away 2021. So they almost have to play Jimmy G to start this season, regardless of who they draft. Now, I know that goes against everything that we think about and everything that the love doctor promotes as far as when it's time to cut the cord, you cut the cord. But again, this is business, and you're not just responsible for one guy. You're responsible for the other 52 guys in that locker room. And let's face it, Kyle Shanahan has to try to win the most games he can because he and John Lynch, they were both given dueling 6-year deals, and they got to not only get to a Super Bowl, they got to try to win it. And right now, Jimmy G gives them the best chance to do that.
Well, he gives you the best chance if he's going to be on the field. He missed 10 games last year. And so with durability being such a huge question mark when it comes to him, Booker. That's why I came up with that. I certainly agree with you when you break down the football analysis of it all about him being their best option if he's on the field. But the reason why they're so suspect on him and so looking to move on, it ain't because he can't play quarterback position when he's on the field. It's because they're continuously questioning whether or not he's going to be on the field. They have no faith in his durability. So if you take that into consideration and you have an option.
That's why you keep him, Stephen.
But you got the number 3 overall pick to draft the quarterback. If you could potentially get somebody like a Cam Newton along with additional assets from New England to give away Jimmy Garoppolo with the crew that you already have in place on the defensive side of the ball, with Monster still being there, Deebo Samuel still being there, George Kittle still being there, I say it's worth rolling the dice.
I think it's a very interesting idea, but Garoppolo knows the system. You have continuity. You have a chance to win now. Cam, that's a whole other
when he's on the field,
factor.
which he usually is.
And if he's not, you bring up your rookie quarterback and develop.
And the last thing I'll say, Stephen A, is there have been people suspect on the love doctor too, but that's never stopped you from giving advice.
Because the love doctor never failed. Because the love doctor never because the love doctor never failed. The love doctor never failed.
I'm just telling you.
You understand what I'm saying?
Love doctor came in with his arm in a sling. I said he was hurt.
You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say.
Has the love doctor ever been hurt?
I want to know,
Yes.
Yes, and you played through it, right?
Does the love doctor, hold up. Has the love doctor ever listened to his own advice? We'll do a segment on that. Let's leave it there, America.
Are you ready for this, Molly? Here's the answer. I ain't talking about myself. As Bernie Mac, as the late, great Bernie Mac would say, I ain't talking about myself. I ain't talking about myself. No. I ain't talking about myself.
I know you're not. Dishing it, but not receiving it.
Not at all. But I got news for you, Molly.
Thanks for putting a smile on my face. This was a lot of fun.
I might sooner than later.
Oh, okay. Okay, I love it. And I'll be here for all of it to support. All right, let's go.
Breaking news.
Do I hear bells ringing?
The mic
Do I hear bells ringing?
To our director.
Do I hear bells ringing
right now? The Clippers beat the Bucks. Meet you at the chapel without PG-13 last night. So why does Stephen A. still think Giannis has a better chance to reach the finals than Kawhi's pregame Sports Center? That is at 7 Eastern. He'll be getting you set for those games. All right, let's stay with the NBA, fellas. Clippers crushed the Bucks by 24 without Paul George. LA, how we feeling after last night's performance?
Everything we've been working on and frustrated about early on in the season, you can finally see it come together. Having a defensive mindset every single night.
We held them to 105 tonight, so that's just a great defensive effort right there. I think we're just being more attention to detail. We're just playing hard from the first quarter to the fourth quarter.
All right, Stephen A., after last night's game, we're thinking, who has the better chance to reach the finals? You think it's the Clippers after they made some moves or the Bucks?
It's the Milwaukee Bucks. Max Kellerman, for simple arithmetic reasons. They only got one team they need to go through pretty much. The Western Conference is wide open, especially if, with the sole express purpose of with the only exception, rather, is Anthony Davis if he's 100%. Then there's nothing to talk about. The Lakers will cakewalk to the finals. Outside of that, it's a crapshoot. I mean, when you look at the teams in the Western Conference, it's the Lakers, it's the Clippers, it's the Jazz, it's the Denver Nuggets, it's the Portland Trail Blazers, it's the Phoenix Suns. You just look at how loaded the Western Conference is with the Dallas Mavericks being an outside threat and what have you. We can't ignore that. In the Eastern Conference, it's about Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and Philly. Period. We can look at Miami. We can look at Boston as having an outside chance and stuff like that. But it really comes down to Milwaukee, Philly, and, of course, Brooklyn being the number one team. And what if Brooklyn has to face one of them before the other? See, I don't know if Milwaukee and Philly would have to go against each other before they face Brooklyn. Because then, from an arithmetic perspective, mathematical perspective, then obviously that would be different because that would be similar to what you have to go through in the Western Conference. But I'm not anticipating that. I'm anticipating them having to face only one of them. And I think it's a situation where it's just like, hey, that's what it is. Whereas in the Western Conference, I think the Western Conference is considerably more loaded. That's all. That's the only reason.
The Clippers, I think, are far more likely to win the championship than the Bucks.
No, I was talking about getting out.
Even getting the finals. I think to reach the finals, the Clippers are far more likely than the Bucks, and I'll tell you why. And I saw it last night again with Giannis. Giannis can hit a wide open three. If you put a little pressure on him defensively, he does not hit that shot. The philosophy will be the exact same as it's been. The difference being they have Drew Holiday, who's a clutch player in the playoffs. But here's the problem, Stephen A. I saw James Harden and Kyrie Irving go through the best teams in the Western Conference, 5 straight games on the road, beat them all without KD. Once KD gets back, it's a wrap. But let's put Brooklyn aside. So they ain't getting out of the East if they have all 3 guys. Like, forget Milwaukee getting out of the East if Brooklyn's healthy. Let's say they're not. But Embiid is playing for Philadelphia. I don't think Milwaukee's better than Philadelphia. I'll tell you something else. In the playoffs, I don't know if Milwaukee's going to be better than Miami. They weren't last year. I don't know. But I look at this Clippers team with Kawhi and Paul George. The real issue with the Clippers is Paul George is not a star when they need him to be a star. They got Rondo. That's going to help that. It's going to help that. And it's going to help Kawhi because Kawhi doesn't have to play point forward. You look at how deep this team is. Really take Ibaka and Batum. Rondo, Ibaka, Batum, Kawhi, and Paul George. That's a lot. But then look at the bench. Zubac can really play.
I like Zubac. Lakers gave him up.
Marcus Morris can play. Kennard, do you know what Kennard's hitting? I know you didn't like that deal.
I don't.
Do you know what Kennard's shooting from 3 this year? I looked it up. Almost 50%. He's shooting 49%. Taking 3 threes a game, shooting 49%. Reggie Jackson can play. Patrick Beverly, we know, can play. What about this kid, man? He's good. Like, they have they go 11 deep on the Clippers for real with 11 dudes who can play and a real all-star quality starting 5. The Clippers, the real roadblock standing in their way is a healthy AD and LeBron, which we don't know is going to happen. Denver is real tough, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I did mention that.
Denver's going to be real tough. But when I look at the Bucks and what they're capable of versus an unbeatable Brooklyn team, and I look at the Clippers fully loaded, I don't see a single team where I'm like, if everyone's healthy, the Clippers have no shot. I think everyone healthy, including the Lakers, the Clippers have a real good shot. If everyone's healthy in the East, Milwaukee has no shot. Milwaukee's never going to get by that Brooklyn team. Forget that.
I understand that mode of thinking, but we're coming from 2 different angles. I totally understand you're saying if everybody's healthy. I'm just thinking about the number of teams in the West that you have to compete with compared to what you have to compete with in the Eastern Conference. You have a top 3, and then there's everybody else. In the Western Conference, you have a top 6, top 7. And because of that, I think the road to prosperity is significantly tougher coming out of the West than it's going to be out of the Eastern Conference. That's the only reason why I say the Bucks have an easier path. It's not that ultimately if you face Brooklyn's going to be easy than everybody. I'm picking them to win it all. I'm just simply saying that when you look at the road that you have to travel to get to that, I'm thinking it's far more difficult, just round by round, for the Clippers, I anticipate, than it would
I'll
be
give you something else.
For the Milwaukee Bucks.
You know who I think matches up best with Brooklyn out of the West? I think it's actually the Clippers. I think the Clippers, because they have 2 dominant two-way wings. The whole key is, can Paul George perform under pressure?
Hold it.
Key.
With all due respect, and I love me some Paul George, one of my favorite people in the world, and I think he's a damn good player. And Kawhi Leonard is a silent assassin. We all know that, but I think he could elevate his level of leadership. Here's the bottom line.
Don't need to with Rondo.
Here's the bottom line. You don't get to call them great two-way players after they let Jamal Murray drop 40 in a Game 7.
They are. You're going to say they're not great two-way players?
No,
Kawhi?
What I'm saying to you is this. You're the man. It's a berth to the conference finals on the line. And not only do you lose, y'all fold offensively. Defensively, Jamal Murray dropped 40
on game, man.
Yeah, it's a Game 7. It matters.
After all the Game 7s or important games in Kawhi's career.
Let me tell you something right now. What have you done for me lately? I'm a Janet Jackson fan. And let me tell you something right now. What have you done for me lately matters to me. I'm telling you right now, I'm not questioning their abilities. I'm not saying that they're not these players. What I'm saying is the residual impact that was left behind, the indelible mark, is that you let Jamal Murray drop 40 on you
Rondo's
in a
fix
Game
that.
7.
Rondo will fix it.
No, I'm not forgetting that. I'm not forgetting that.
According to our basketball power index here at ESPN, the Bucks have the 5th best odds to reach the finals, and the Clippers have the 6th best. So right there, neck and neck. We'll continue this debate all season long. When we come back here on First Take, though, is it fair to criticize Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge for joining KD, Kyrie, and Harden? Kendrick Perkins, Big Perk, with some strong comments for the fellas. Plus, Russell Westbrook joined an elite group last night that includes 20 assists in a game. Stephen A., let's talk about Westbrook's night. Big deal or no big deal?
You know, this is a difficult subject, and I'm going to tell you why. You know, because Westbrook is a serious brother. He's real and authentic in every way, and I have nothing but the utmost profound respect for him as a man. I truly mean that. And, you know, with a lot of people, I could joke around, but not when it comes to Westbrook, because that ain't his style. You know, you don't joke when it comes to him, and I respect that. So I'm going to be as real and as authentic as I possibly can be. Westbrook's numbers last night mean absolutely nothing to me because even though that's great numbers, that's what Westbrook can do. We all know this. He's a former league MVP. He's the most athletic point guard we have ever seen in NBA history. He's been, I believe it was 4 conference finals in his career. We know this, but here's the reality of the situation. Russell Westbrook, when we look at his game, it's the same stuff every year. Might get a little bigger, strong, athletic, can take it to the basket. Still hasn't got that shot going, that three-point shot. You know, you in the same conference as Steph Curry for years. You struggling from three-point range. You going up against Dame time. The three-point shot ain't there. Kevin Durant departs. You don't make it out of the first round until you get to Houston last year. Last year in Houston, he was an MVP candidate, averaging 27, 7, and 7, okay? But in the playoffs, they obviously folded because they were going up against the Lakers and they were just overmatched. We understand that. You want out. So what do? You end up going to Washington. Now, I understand that I get to look at coaching because Scott Brooks should have some explaining to do to have the absolute worst defense in basketball. Any coach that has the worst defense in basketball should have some explaining to do. They are ranked 30th in the league in points allowed. But Bradley Beal and you are in the backcourt together, and y'all are 17 and 28 in the Eastern Conference. And you're Russell Westbrook, and I want to remind everybody who the teammates have been. Kevin Durant. Now, Russell Westbrook's getting paid over $200 million. And damn it, the fervor he brings to the game, I understand him getting that money. But in terms of results, Kevin Durant was your teammate. Harden was your teammate not once but twice. Reggie Jackson was your teammate. Serge Ibaka was your teammate. Victor Oladipo was your teammate. Paul George was your teammate. Bradley Beal is your teammate. I mean, damn. You've played with some great, great players over the years, some talent, and not a single title to show for it. So to me, if I'm going to look at everybody else, whether it's LeBron and Kyrie and Steph and everybody else, I got to look at that too. The numbers are the numbers. That's Russell Westbrook. He could do that to anybody. But I'm at a point in time in his career where it's like, it ain't about that no more. It's about whether or not you can get to another level to win the chip. Swim at.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. I think you made a lot of good points. But as you might say, I don't think you get to make those points.
Okay.
Because what do you religiously complain about? Guys taking nights off.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Regular season. Blake Griffin didn't dunk till he got to Brooklyn. Now, first thing we see a dunk on the highlights, right? Russell Westbrook
never cheats us.
Russell Westbrook's in a losing situation. Now, you're right. You and Bradley Beal are in the same backcourt. Figure it out in the East. You should have a 500 record at least. Yeah. But you think he lets that losing situation affect the way he plays?
No.
Affect, you said, the fervor he brings to the game? Mm-hmm. You know what it reminds me of? Because he ain't the same dude physically as he was 5 years ago. Of course not. He's 32 years old. He's not as fast as he was just because he's still fast.
Real fast.
But he ain't what he was.
Because he got bigger.
There is a Dylan Thomas poem, Stephen A. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. That's Russell Westbrook. He ain't going gentle into anywhere. He's going to rage until the day they rip the uniform off of him. And I'm someone who will tell you, you're like, oh, Max, you don't care about the regular season. That's right, and I don't apologize. Because more than 50% of the teams now make the playoffs. Like the season ends, the 9 and 10 and the 7 and 8 are playing in a play-in tournament. Guess what? If the season's over and you're still playing, that's the postseason. 10 out of 15 teams per conference, 20 out of 30 in the league. 2/3 of the league are playing after the season's over in the postseason. Guess what? I don't care about the regular season as much. So I hear what you're saying, but Russell Westbrook does. Russell Westbrook, every time he steps on the court, gives you 100% effort. Whether he's on a winning team or a losing team, whether they're going somewhere or not. That man just put up a triple-double with 30 points and 20 assists? No. Other people can make the point you just made about Russell Westbrook. I don't think you can.
I can.
You complain about this all the time.
Because it's a different argument when it comes to Russell Westbrook. It doesn't dilute what I've said about other players around the league. What I'm trying to tell you is that Russell Westbrook has teased and spoiled us with his greatness. He's a phenomenal, phenomenal athlete. But you have to pay attention to the competition that you're going against. And at some point in time, it can't be about your stubbornness and your dogged approach to doing what you do. It has to be you paying attention to what makes other people successful and then finding a way to emulate them. Max, you've lamented this. I got Russell Westbrook's numbers right in front of me. Since 2014, since the 2013-2014 season, since then, Russell Westbrook has shot 29, 29, 34, 29, 29, 25, and now he's at 31% from three-point range.
You can't shoot.
Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that, look, man, what else are you doing? You understand what I'm saying? You make enough money.
He just did a triple-double with 30 points, 20 assists.
Work on your shot. I'm telling you right now, Russell Westbrook can do that against anybody in the regular season. He'll put up numbers, but at the end of the day, when there's an elevated level of standard his greatness demands. I want to be talking about Russell Westbrook as a champion. I'm rooting for him to win a championship. I don't root against guys like that. He's real, and he gives you all he's got, and he's coming at you all night long.
Year.
I just want that.
Houston last year.
Well, he had COVID. He came down with COVID.
But I'm saying he played a team game. Russell Westbrook, who's always selfish, he'll play a team game.
But I'm not calling him selfish. I'm saying that I need more production.
You want him to shoot.
I need more production from him.
If Russell Westbrook could shoot from the outside, be the best player who ever lived.
Russell Westbrook has graduated from the point where we talk about his numbers. It's about results now. He's too great to be in a losing situation like that.
No one has gone to more Wizards games here at ESPN than Stephen A. Smith. Come on, you know he can't win a chip there. They're 12th in the East. No one's gone to more Wizards games in the nation's capital than you. You know the man does not have a squad around him. He's in the company of Magic and the Big O.
Well,
after
I wasn't
that,
talking about just this
give
year.
the man
I'm talking
some
about
props.
all the last several years.
I know. The history, the resume. All right, let's leave it there, fellas. Jeannie Buss had a message for the Nets and the rest of the NBA. Wait till you hear what the Lakers owner had to say. I am here for it. Plus, find out why this non-call on UConn wasn't the only controversial moment for Baylor. Stay here, it's First Take. Head coach Kim Mulkey's Lady Bears lost in a 69-67 heartbreaker last night to UConn in the Elite Eight. And after the game, Mulkey gave some unsolicited comments on COVID testing in the tournament moving forward. Take a listen.
I don't think my words will matter, but after the games today and tomorrow, there's 4 teams left, I think, on the men's side and the women's side. They need to dump the COVID testing. Wouldn't it be a shame to keep COVID testing and then you got kids that end up having test positive or something and they don't get to play in the Final Four? So you need to just forget the COVID test and let the 4 teams that are playing in each Final Four go battle it out.
What? Stephen A.?
I think that was a very ignorant statement on her part. I happen to be a fan of hers. I think she does a tremendous job, but I think that statement specifically as this subject pertains to that statement, I think it was a very ignorant statement on her part. I think it was irresponsible. But what's also alarming about it is that Kim Mulkey acknowledged the possibility that there could be positive tests. It wasn't like she said, well, it's really not that much to worry about. No, she's acknowledging it would be a shame if somebody tested positive and as a result, they couldn't play. Well, does the word contamination rear its head? If you're positive and you're around other people, chances are, even though the players are playing the game, their teammates are not the only people that they're around. They're also around coaches. They're also around equipment folks. They're also around administrators. They're not isolated to the point where they're around no one but each other. So to acknowledge the possibility that there could be positive tests and then to dismiss it by saying, well, hey, it would be a shame if a guy didn't get to play because they had a positive test. Really? You know, are you not thinking about other people? Max has brought this up on many occasions, and it's worth mentioning again, which I'm sure he will. It's not about just you. If it were about you, then that's entirely okay to make that call because it's about you and you're willing to take the risk. The reason why the pandemic is such a sensitive subject to folks when we hear stuff like that is because it completely dismisses taking into consideration the harm that you can do to others, which is why we have a global problem right now. Because on the part of millions, there are some people really in the millions that don't appear to care about the potential impact they can have on other people. It's not about you. I remember one woman, Max, they had on video. She goes into a bank, and the bank has a policy. You wear your mask, or you can't come in here. The security officers in the bank, he says, ma'am, please put on your mask. She says, I will do no such thing, and I'm not leaving. And the officer said, if you don't listen, I'm going to have to arrest you. You will do no such thing. And I said, what kind of world are we living in where you think you get to tell a police officer, you will not arrest me? Really? That's how you think this goes? Naturally and appropriately, he snatched her behind up and made sure to cuff her and arrest her. Because the bank had a policy and you're around other people that you could potentially infect. I don't understand how in March, approaching April of 2021, after what we've been through as a world, not just as a nation, that people don't get that. I wear my mask for no other, and I've never tested positive. I wear my mask for no other reason than I want to be considerate of others and make sure that I'm not harming anybody else.
Your mask protects me. My mask protects you. That's what it's about.
Yes, I don't
and by the way, there's a vaccine now, 3 different versions.
By the way, I take shot number 2.
That's excellent.
Tonight.
And they're working on something that looks promising, like a Tamiflu, but for COVID. So if you do get it, it can treat it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of reason for optimism, but because of that optimism, people may let their guard down right now, and it can get worse before it gets better. There are 500,000 Americans dead from this disease. And do you know why it's 500,000 instead of some fraction of that number? Because we're coming out of an aggressively stupid era of politics where, hopefully, the idea was bury your head in the sand, and if you're unaware of it, if you keep yourself ignorant of things, then it's as though it doesn't exist. But what a disease shows you is it doesn't matter what your politics are or what you want to ignore. You can ignore a disease all you want. It can still kill you. Stephen A., you called Kim Mulkey's comments ignorant. I'll go a step further. Kim Mulkey made aggressively stupid comments. Her comments are aggressively stupid because the idea that you would keep a tournament, I don't want to spoil the tournament. What you touched on this. What if someone tests positive? Then wouldn't it be a shame if we couldn't play basketball? If someone tests positive, then they become a vector for the disease. So if you play basketball, you may spread the disease. Does Kim Mulkey under the impression that as long as we don't know about it, the disease won't spread? Or is she under the impression that the potential spread of the disease is not as important as finishing the tournament? Actually, if you test, you have a chance to finish the tournament. This is what bothers me so much about it is we're just hopefully coming out of that era. You just bury your head in the sand, don't know about it, and it's the same thing as dealing with it. We'll just ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. That's how we wound up with over 500,000 Americans dead. It didn't have to be like that.
Yeah. I mean, I just think the simple fact of what if somebody tests positive? That's the dumbest thing. If somebody tests positive, they don't play because we don't want to infect people. Right. We don't want people to get it's the other thing. It's ridiculous.
The other thing that's important to point out, and I'm not trying to get political here because I don't take sides like that. That's not me. But I will tell you this. it's amazing to me how folks lean on a particular side of thinking. You know, like when they talk about the previous administration, I'd like to remind everybody about the previous administration. Previous administration, your president and the first lady actually took the vaccine and took it in private. You understand what I'm saying? And took it in private while basically telling everybody else wasn't nothing to worry about. So let's not forget that. Let's not forget, too. In other words, folks weren't necessarily practicing what they preached.
We're about to beat this thing, and the casualties so far have been much higher than they ought to have been or should have been or needed to be, and let's make sure they're no higher.
For sure. Especially Kim Mulkey did have COVID back around Christmas time, so I would think she'd know better. But the good thing for her, the silver lining in all of this, is she doesn't have to worry because Baylor's not in the Final Four. UConn is. We will leave it there. When we come back, everybody, here on First Take, are the Lakers worried about the loaded Nets? Save it, Stephen A. Here, Lakers owner Jeannie Buss shut that down real quick. Coming up on First Take.
I don't want to hear from this dude.
Wait, ding, ding, ding. Hang in. I got to get in.
I mean, the quickest transition in the history of television.
What? This can't even be real.
You know what?
Go ahead, KB.
Jeannie looks great, by the way. So does Perk.
Jeannie
Perk,
is great.
how we doing? Good to see you. I mean, no, honestly, I wasn't here when she was on the show. She looks great. Not that that's the point of this. All right, she was on a show you might have heard of on ESPN Plus. It's a fan favorite. It's called Stephen A's World, and that's where that interview was. Stephen A.
Molly, did you hear?
Yeah.
Did you hear that Perk? You know, he got a condo in it. He got a condo in Stephen A's World. Did you hear him say that?
What?
He said that's what he said. He said I'm on he showed up on Stephen A's World. I'm in Stephen A's World and I got a condo in it. That's what he said. That's what he said. It's right though. He's right. Yeah. He's right.
Yeah,
I think it needs a little
I think
it needs to be refurbished a little remodeling, but he's got a condo in it.
Yep.
All right, Stephen A., how do you think the league should feel about Jeannie's comments on the Nets?
I think they should love it, particularly when we see how they loading up in Brooklyn. Jeannie Buss is saying, hold your horses. We're the reigning, defending NBA champions, and we think we're going to have something to say about all of that in the end. We just picked up Andre Drummond, who averages nearly 14 rebounds a game in his career. We expect to have Anthony Davis back. LeBron James, we have no doubt he will be back. And so when you consider the pieces that we have in place, we think we're going to have something to say about, who's standing in the end. And that's what she's saying, and that's the kind of mentality that you want champions to have. She's basically staking claim to the fact that she doesn't believe that the Lakers are going anywhere for the foreseeable future. And the lovely, incomparable Board of Governors for the Los Angeles Lakers has significant credibility when she says such things. And I sincerely hope that's going to be the case this season.
There's a level of what we used to say gangsterism in Jeannie Buss, just like her father. They are not sweating what you're doing. They get crewed up. Look, here's the thing about the Lakers and the Buss family. Dr. Jerry Buss, the late, great Dr. Jerry Buss, was by far the greatest owner in the history of American team sports. Please don't embarrass anybody else by comparing them to him. Trust me. Look at the resume. Jeannie Buss, a chip off the old block. And think how hard it is to be her that way because you're following an impossible act to follow. And yet, even though she upheld her father's basically dying wish, keep the family together, with the team, and kept her brother in the position running the team probably an extra year that she should have for 4 years instead of 3 years, she eventually said, okay, enough, we got to win. Took over the team, and since she's been calling the shots and put her basketball people in place, 3 years later, they won a championship. They won a championship in 3 years. And now they're looking to defend. And she knows if her squad is healthy, she's not looking for an unfair advantage against the Nets, right? Go ahead, let the Nets get crewed up. The Lakers are crewed up, and let the chips fall where they may. They're not sweating it. Love me some Jeannie Buss. How could you not, as a Lakers fan, how could you not love that attitude?
Right. As a competitor, how can you not love that attitude? We have to remember who Jeannie Buss has been around also and watch grow into one of the greatest players of all time, in my opinion, Kobe Bryant. She came out with the Mamba mentality. That's a Mamba mentality. Bring it on. We are the defending champs. I got arguably the best duo since Kobe and Shaq. And here's the thing, right? You got to love the competitive nature. And I look back in 2016 when the other super team was formed and down there in the Bay Area with the Golden State Warriors. The great Greg Popovich from the San Antonio Spurs, when asked about him at the beginning of the season, he said, I get it, right? Don't quote me on this. I may not have it all right, but I know he said something along the lines of, we understand how great of a team they are on paper, but who's going to beat them? That's the thing. Who's going to step up and try to beat them? And when you look at what happened to them when the Spurs and them met up in the Western Conference Finals, the San Antonio Spurs had them down 20 at halftime before Zaza Pachulia slid his big size 23s up under Kawhi Leonard's feet, who was tearing them up, by the way, 26 points in 23 minutes. So I love the competitive nature. I mean, it should bring out the best of every team. Who's going to beat them? Who's going to try to beat this Nets team that is stacking up right now? That's the spirit you want to have.
That's exactly what we need too. We need to be reminded of that. We need to we need to be reminded of the importance of competition. I mean, see, this is what it is about basketball, man. It's like a team sport is a team sport. We get it, but it's like when a batter shows up, Max, to play baseball. When he shows up to the batter's box, it's about him against that pitch at that particular moment in time. One of the things that I hate and absolutely detest in the world of sports, I don't know if I hate anything more than the intentional walk. I don't know if I hate anything more, because that's you basically saying, you know what, I don't want to compete against you.
Well, it's your manager saying that.
Yeah, I know it's your manager, but guess what? The manager never told Randy Johnson that, wouldn't tell Roger Clemens that, wouldn't tell some of the great, one of Mike, Nolan Ryan and others that, no, you know what they would have done to them if a manager told them to intentionally walk somebody? No, we ain't going out like that. Let's get it on. And I'm saying you transfer that to basketball. And one of the things that I think is incredibly important to remind everybody, that's what we really, really want to see. You know, one of the reasons why I backed off, even though I called it when KD went to Golden State, the weakest move I'd ever seen by a superstar. The reason I backed off about that is because I never forget the first moments of that finals when he was finally in the finals for Golden State against LeBron in Cleveland. He scored the jump shot and then clapped his hands and spread his arms wide, defending against LeBron like, let's go. It was his way of saying, okay, here we go now.
Why? It's because his mom went at you.
I just said, no. I did apologize to Mama. Mama Durant. I mean, come on. I love Mama Durant now. I mean, I got a soft spot for that lady. But what I'm saying to you is that the point is, he was sitting there saying, let's go. It's me and you now. You had your crew. I got my crew. Now it's me and you. I'm just saying, we want to see that. It's important in the sport of basketball. That's how basketball became popular.
But the thing about the Lakers is, you're right, I'm with that attitude. The thing about being a Lakers fan, or in Jeannie's case, the owner of the team, is that when you're like, okay, let's go, right? You're coming at them with Shaq and Kobe, with Magic and Kareem, with LeBron and AD. You're not coming at them with, you know, you talk about Blake and LaMarcus Aldridge. You're not coming at them with CP3 and Blake, which was a great combination, but it's not enough. So Jeannie's saying, come on, we got 2 MVP players on the team. We got who we need. Let's go. That's the thing about the Lakers. They'll get their guys. They'll get guys, even if it's not, oh, this is unfair. Because back in the day, the Celtics were just as good as the Lakers now. Let's see it, right?
KP, Kendrick, before you say anything else, I will do have an open confession to make. When the Lakers are winning basketball games, the breeze in L.A., the palm trees, it just feels a little different. There's something a little extra special about L.A. when the Lakers are relevant. It's just it's just a little ambiance in the air. It just feels good. I just want to say.
So basically, to sum it all up, Jeannie Buss just said, in the words of Patrick Beverly, I ain't trying to hear all that. Jump ball. Jump ball.
Right.
Amen.
Carry on.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Perfect.
Go ahead,
Let's
Molly.
keep it going, guys. On the subject of the Nets here, we got Blake Griffin isn't having any of it. Just another all-star on the new team filled with all-stars. Laughed off criticisms of unfairness after the team acquired him. James Harden and LaMarcus Aldridge all within the past 2.5 months. Perk, I want to start with you. Is the criticism of Blake and Aldridge justify that they're kind of ring chasing on this band.
Yeah, it is, because here it is, Molly. Like, these are not guys that were role players on the team, on another team, and came over to join the Brooklyn Nets. Like, when I was at the tail end of my career, I've been a role player all my life. But at the end of my career, I knew I wasn't getting minutes, but I wanted to get on the team that I could win a championship with. It was different. I knew I wasn't getting in the game. I knew I had to be a locker room guy, the ultimate professional, a veteran leader. It was a difference for me because I was a role player. These are two guys that are former All-Stars, guys that got paid hundreds of millions of dollars, that probably had other options where they could go and actually contribute. We don't know how many minutes Blake Griffin is going to get. We don't know how many minutes LaMarcus Aldridge is going to get, but they're not going to be playing 25 to 20 minutes a night. We know that much. When the Nets are fully healthy, somebody is going to have to sacrifice some minutes. So what I'm saying is, they could have, I'm pretty sure they had other options and other teams that were reaching out to them that they could have went join, that they could have played a significant role of trying to compete and help and playing meaningful minutes to go win a title. So the criticism is fair. It is fair to say that. Now, I mean, hey, y'all on the team, good luck to y'all, but it is fair. It's fair.
I don't think that criticism is fair. I would say, Stephen A. pointed something out earlier. I would agree with this. Because I don't really think they move the needle, either guy at this point. I mean, they're live bodies, but that's about it at this point. Then it is sort of like they're buying a ring. Because the Nets, if they're healthy, they're going to win this year, everybody. I have bad news for you. They went through the Western Conference without KD, went 5-0 on a West Coast road trip without KD.
Right.
So these dudes are purchasing rings. In that sense, you want to criticize them, fine. But I think of a dude like Andre Iguodala. Iguodala was miscast as the best or maybe second best player on a team in Philly. You ain't going to win a championship that way. But Iguodala was a legitimately great player. And if he's the fourth best dude on your team, you're going to win a championship. It's hard for players, I think, to recognize that, especially players in college. They're elite. They come out. They want to be MVP types, to say, wait a minute. Maybe that's not me in this league, but I can still be great. I'm looking right now at Aaron Gordon on Denver. Watch what happens. Not carry the team, but join this team and contribute. He could be great. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge should not be criticized for the fact that they weren't good enough to be the number 1 or 2 guy on a championship team. That, to me, is not legitimate criticism. They played as well as they could.
Well, first of all, a couple of things. Number one, hold on, KP. I'll deal with him for a second. Here's a couple of things, Max Kellerman. Number one, I hear you saying repeatedly over the last couple of weeks that the Nets, are going to win the chip. Welcome to the party. It took you long enough.
I had to see them play together.
Congratulations, because even after they got James Harden and they had him with Kyrie and Kevin Durant, you were saying their defense was so awful. That
changed.
It's not going to happen. It changed.
It's a fluid list.
Did I not tell you that they could prove marginally, and that's all it required? That's all. Number one. Number two, I love how you mentioned a bit earlier that Giannis can't shoot contested jump shots. It took
you want to bring up old stuff.
I'm just saying.
You told me Harden couldn't run point for Houston.
No, I never told you that.
Yes, you did.
That is a lie.
That's on tape.
That is a lie.
Go find the tape.
I never said that.
When D'Antoni made a point guard, you said, I don't like it. He's not a point guard.
I said I don't like it with D'Antoni because I know how D'Antoni does stuff. But that's fine. All right, I'll take that. You know what? You proved me wrong because I give credit to D'Antoni for that because he did something I didn't think he could do. Let me get to my point.
Bring up old stuff.
Let me get to my point about Blake Griffin and Aldridge. And KP, you know, none but love for you. No disrespect here, so please don't take it this way. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge were once cornerstones of a franchise. You were an enforcer, a rebounder, a defender that played your role offensively. There is absolutely nothing wrong with somebody like you as age and attrition kicks in to go on a team to jump on a bandwagon. But somebody that was the cornerstone of a franchise, that went to Max, this very important point I'm about to bring up, that went to the negotiating table and demanded dollars of a cornerstone of a franchise, to suddenly find yourself where you're piggyback. Listen, you can say old, but I'm not sure about that. What I'm saying to you is this. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge combined to take about $20 million less with their buyouts to end up on the Brooklyn Nets. I feel you on that. But what I'm saying is, again, it's not a criticism. I'm just saying that when I look at a team and I look at you as a player and you were once a star, if you descend to that point, usually people are telling you to retire. not to jump somewhere else to be able to say you got a ring when you spent the vast majority of your career collecting a check that said you can be the cornerstone of a franchise that ultimately captures a ring. That's the difference. I want KP to respond to that point that I just made, Max.
Okay,
because it's important. Go ahead, KP. What I just said, any issue with that?
No, not at all. Look, Stephen A., I was comfortable with who I was as a role player. I knew at the tail end of my career, I was the guy that was going to be on the end of the bench, averaging 2,500 claps a game. And I was okay with that. But you're right. And you take a guy like Carmelo Anthony, for example, right? I'm pretty sure he could have went set on somebody's bench and not get meaningful minutes and not get playing time. But he said, no, I want to play.
I can still play.
Hoop. I still could hoop at the age of 35, at the age of 36. Portland, give me a chance. And he's playing meaningful minutes. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. I'm saying that he is saying, I want to work for it. I still could contribute. I'm going to play 25 to 28 minutes a game.
I think that this is really about that we agree. Because I think what this is really about is people misinterpreting the message from the media and the fans, which is we're counting rings. So when I hear the argument, well, Robert Horry's got all these rings, that doesn't make him better than Michael Jordan. Well, no, of course not, because he wasn't the best player on his team. But it does say something about Robert Horry. And I think enough players have gotten that message that they're like, I better get a ring before I retire or I'm never going to hear the end of it. And so they'll pay money. They'll, like in a buyout, they'll lose money. Basically, they're buying a ring. I understand what you mean. These are not players that are going to move the needle for the Brooklyn Nets, really. But they get a ring out of it. That I agree with. Again, but that's different than saying. That's different than saying.
Max,
yeah, go ahead.
I know. But Max,
go ahead.
But Max, you said and I get your point. They're not going to move the needle for the Brooklyn Nets. But I think, to me and Stephen A's point, is that they could have went somewhere else and proved that they could move the needle for another organization or another contender.
At this point,
But I'm saying at this point, what does that do?
Oh, time. Max, LaMarcus Aldridge is not a scrub. He can still play.
They're going to get minutes.
Blake Griffin is not a scrub. He can still play. I'm saying they could have went to another team that needed them even more to go up against a Goliath like Brooklyn. But you're not. But I'm saying they're not supposed to think that way, Max. They're not supposed to think that way.
This is what I'm saying. When you get to a certain point in your career, if you acknowledge, this is what I am now. Well, this is what it is. This is the point for a team like Brooklyn. You got 96 minutes a game between the 4 and the 5 with the Nets, right? You got Claxton, DeAndre Jordan, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Blake Griffin.
On, Max.
They're going to get minutes.
Max, what I'm not talking about the minutes. I'm saying you were once the cornerstone of a franchise.
I was then.
Stay with me, bro. You were once the cornerstone of a franchise, and you're not even a fourth option, and you're okay with that. I'm saying when we look at stars, we go like this: retire before you do that. And I'm not. Think about it. I'm not saying Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge can't play. I'm saying they can play, so they should want to compete instead of tipping the scales on a particular franchise.
They ain't tipping those scales.
With Kyrie, listen, with Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, do you know that all LaMarcus Aldridge has to do is stand on one baseline or the other, literally stand still? He don't even have to run.
You get a lot of guys
can literally stand still and average 10 to 15 a game, shooting uncontested shots like he's in warm-ups because you got to preoccupy yourself with those guys.
I disagree with both of your points, Perk. I disagree with you and Stephen A. that they should want to compete in a losing effort at this point in their careers. I will say this. I also disagree with them that this ring will say anything about their careers, other than they were willing to purchase a ring. I don't think, the players have gotten the message that I better win a ring or I'll never hear the end of it. I don't think KD going to Golden State proved anything because you can't lose there. I don't think that LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin winning a ring with the Nets will prove anything.
But Max, you were one of the same people in the world that was saying that Carmelo Anthony was done, right?
Yep.
You were one of the few that was saying that. You were saying that he wasn't moving the needle, and he still had a lot of basketball left in him, and he wanted to show the world that. So look, let me give you an example. I know a lot of people were criticizing LeBron James, right? Saying that all these jokes or whatever, saying that, hey, Carmelo Anthony is his banana boat buddy and all this. Why is he not without a job? He could be on the Lakers. Here's why he wasn't on the Lakers. And they were saying that he should replace Jared Dudley. But here's why Carmelo wasn't probably on the Lakers, because he probably wasn't going to accept a lesser role like a Jared Dudley, probably not being able to dress out for 10 to 15 games or having to show up to work, not being able to play. Carmelo wasn't going to be okay with that. And that's the difference between being a role player and used to being a cornerstone like Stephen A. That's a big difference.
Oh, and Max, here's the other point that I want to make to you. You act like LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin got their double ARP cards. LaMarcus Aldridge, his game wasn't predicated on athleticism. He's a 6'11" jump shooter, essentially.
But not a
who can play with
shooter.
Who can play with his back to the basket, but he's a 6'11" jump shooter. He's 35. Blake Griffin.
And he don't shoot the three.
And Blake Griffin is 32. These guys.
But his game was predicated on athletic.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say to you is, again, remember, I understand it. I'm not, and this is the part, I'm not criticizing them. I'm simply saying, as a basketball fan, I would have preferred to see if it's both of them. At least one go to Brooklyn and one go somewhere else, rather than both of them being on Brooklyn. And if you go somewhere, let's make sure that we're trying to compete as opposed to tip the scale so dramatically that we're willing to be former franchise players who collected hundreds of millions of dollars that's perfectly content with playing a fifth or sixth man role on a team.
Karl Malone and Gary Payton went to the Lakers at a certain point.
They
Bill Walton was on the
started,
Celtics. Okay, fine, they started, but still. And actually, they didn't wind up winning championships.
Well, they went to the finals, and Gary Payton got a chip.
They were cornerstones.
But they're teams that took their teams to the finals. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge never did that.
So the fact that they didn't take, the fact that they weren't as good as Karl Malone and Gary Payton.
I'm looking at you, Max, and I'm saying this. Gary Payton went to the finals.
He's a great player.
Jordan stopped him.
Right.
No shame in that.
Okay.
No shame in that.
You're holding it against
Karl Malone. Jordan stopped them twice.
Sure.
Okay. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge never did that.
So you're holding it against Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge that they weren't as good as Gary Payton and Karl Malone?
They weren't. No, I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying that when you're the cornerstone of a franchise, there is no crime in us looking at you and saying, yo, man, what you jumping on the bandwagon for? Go up and contribute to your own damn bandwagon.
Here's my question.
You still can play. You're not a scrub. You can still play.
I got a question for you and Stephen A.
Yeah.
Do you think that competitive gene or whatever it is that's not there, in your opinions, that leads them to join the Nets is the reason they weren't greater players? Looking back on it? Did other cats have that and they didn't, and that's why? Is that what you're... If you're saying that, you got something to talk about.
In fairness to your question, I never thought about it. I'd have to think about it before answering that question and really dissect it. I never thought about it.
If that's what you're saying, we could talk about that.
I never thought about it, but I do know this, and join me here, Kendrick. When LaMarcus Aldridge went from Portland to San Antonio, that was considered a huge pickup that put San Antonio back in title contention. When Blake Griffin was, yes, it did, because Tim Duncan was still there.
Title contention?
Tim Duncan was still there, so was Kawhi Leonard and Manu Ginobili. Yes, it was. Okay. Then when Blake Griffin was in LA with Lob City, remember, we had expectations for him with Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan. And can't forget my man Jamal Crawford and one.
If you're a power forward who's not a
brother right there, something special. I'm just saying.
There's no such thing as a power forward who can't stretch it out at this point, who's the best player in the championship team.
You're dissecting it, and nobody's dissecting it from a basketball perspective the way you are right now. We're talking about the mindset of individuals who got paid to be friends.